Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there is a ton of news stories to get into today, so I want to talk about some Impact Wrestling. There is a ton of Impact Wrestling news stories to get into, some really big Impact Wrestling news stories. Speaking of big, we'll start off with the former Universal Champion, Braun Strowman. His 90-day non-compete clause is up, and we have a ton of news, frankly, about where he's going to land next. Since he was released by WWE earlier this year, there was lots of speculation about where Braun Strowman would go. What would his future look like after WWE? Some people were saying AEW, some people were saying Impact Wrestling, some people were saying he would just retire from pro wrestling altogether. Some would say he would just go back to WWE. Well, we have a bit more information now that the 90 days are up, especially about who's interested in him. We know Impact Wrestling's interested in Braun Strowman. We've spoken about it several times here on the channel. There have been numerous reports and articles and videos talking about how Impact Wrestling really wants to sign Braun Strowman. We saw that video. There was a stream, wasn't there, a month or so ago, 6 weeks ago or so, of Impact Wrestling Executive Vice President Scott D'Amore. He was at a baseball game. He had a few too many to drink, and he was saying that Bound for Glory was going to be Braun for Glory and all this kind of stuff. So we know that Impact Wrestling really does want to sign Braun Strowman. Wow. A report by Fightful Select has come out, and it's shared some details about the possible future of Braun Strowman in professional wrestling. So this is what the report says. The 90-day non-compete is up, and Braun Strowman, now Adam Scherr, is free to sign wherever he wants. Fightful has learned that there have been talks between Scherr and All Elite Wrestling, but in recent weeks, Fightful has heard that Impact Wrestling is heavily interested in bringing in the former Universal Champion. Again, that is no new news. We know that's the case. We've seen that report several times. We heard those rumors and reports several times as well. Fightful have reported it. PW Insider have reported it. F4W Online, Dave Meltzer, Brian Alvarez, all of the major players, if you will, have said Impact Wrestling really wants to sign Braun Strowman, and they think they've got a chance to sign Braun Strowman. Wow. This is what Fightful said. Fightful said that they've got no new details on if a deal is actually in place, but the word backstage at the most recent set of television tapings, which was a couple of weeks ago, in Nashville, led to talent hearing of the company's interest in Scherr. Fightful has heard that the push to get Scherr in Impact Wrestling has gone on for over a month, and it isn't too much of a secret internally. Again, that's why for about the last month or so here on the channel, and all of those reports have been out there that Impact Wrestling really want to sign Braun Strowman, and they've been trying their very best to sign Braun Strowman. Those within the company believe they're going to land him, and he will be heading that way soon. Nothing is definite, of course, until he appears, but several in Impact think that he's headed there. Now, of course, Adam Scherr took part in EC3's Free the Narrative 2 this past weekend as well. I think, look, I've said this a couple of times here. There are sort of three names at the moment that a lot of people are talking about as to where they're going to land next. One's Braun Strowman, the other's Buddy Murphy, third is Bray Wyatt. I've said for a while at this point that I think Braun Strowman is likely to land in Impact. That's the feeling that I have, and I can see him being there. Buddy Murphy. A lot of people have been speaking about Buddy Murphy. Where's he going to land next? Again, I've said that I think the most likely place that he will land, if you believe your gut and you believe the reports as well, is probably Impact Wrestling. The third, of course, is Bray Wyatt, as I mentioned. I know there have been reports for both, for AEW and for Impact. I still, in my heart, feel like I can probably see him landing in AEW, but time will tell when it comes to that one. We'll know at the end of this month. We'll know in the beginning of November where he's going to land. The Braun Strowman one, all of the reports and rumblings and rumors that we've heard have all indicated that he will be going to Impact. If he's going to go to a promotion in North America, or the North American promotion that he decides to sign with, at the moment the most likely destination is Impact Wrestling. It's a pretty big deal, in my opinion. It's a pretty big deal that those within Impact Wrestling feel like they're going to land Strowman. Again, according to that report, as far as Fightful is aware, and in my opinion nowadays, they are the leader when it comes to exclusive information, first breaking stories. They're right up there. They absolutely are. Sean Ross Sapp is just, he's the king at the moment, in my opinion. And if they're saying that, we don't know if anything's signed or if anything's definite right now, that would mean that, again, there's a bit of uncertainty out there. But the fact that they've run a story, and the fact that those within Impact Wrestling, whether that's talent, whether that's officials, whether those are executives, feel like the Braun Strowman is more likely to go to Impact, it's a massive deal. Make no mistake, and I think this is the thing when people talk about Braun Strowman nowadays, is people, when they think about Braun Strowman, they go into Impact Wrestling, you forget how big of a deal Braun Strowman was in 2016, 2017, 2018. WWE horribly mismanaged this guy. In 2016, 2017, 2018, the guy was super over, both as a heel, a monster heel, and as a babyface as well. And WWE managed to somehow mismanage that and turn this guy into something that everyone was a bit indifferent on. And that just shouldn't be the case. When you look at the size of this guy, when you look at not just the size, but his presence, and despite his size and despite his strength, the things he's able to do in the ring is incredible. And he does have this presence, this aura about him. WWE heavily pushed him for years because they knew this guy is special. And there's almost this feeling as well that at the moment he's over the hill. He's 38. He's in the prime of his career. And WWE decided to cut him because he was on $1 million contract. It's well documented. WWE decided, you know what? This guy is past his prime, or he's past his peak. He's no longer worth the contract that he's on. I still think that remains to be seen. Is Braun Strowman worth $1 million per year? That thing is, in my opinion, that's up to WWE, in the sense that you gave him that contract for a reason. You gave him that contract because at the time you thought he was worth $1 million, because the way you were booking him on television in 2016, 2017, early part of 2018, certainly not the latter half, but early part of 2018, gave you indication to say this guy is worth $1 million, because he felt like at periods of time that this could be the guy that's going to be Universal Champion, could be a major star, can main event WrestleManias. And what they did wrong when it came to Braun Strowman is every single time it felt like the right time to make Braun Strowman the Universal Champion, particularly in 2017 and 2018, what did they have him do? They had him lose over and over and over and over and over again, specifically to Brock Lesnar. I don't know how many times Brock Lesnar beat Braun Strowman. It must be at least 2 or 3 times. You know, I think about, there's lots to talk about Crown Jewel on the Saudi Arabia shows at the moment, and that Crown Jewel in 2018, that should have been Braun Strowman's moment, finally. And to be honest, there's an argument to be made that he should have won the Universal Championship in 2017 at the No Mercy pay-per-view when he faced Brock Lesnar, because the guy was super over. And WWE just horribly mismanaged this guy, to the point then when he eventually did win the Universal Championship, he wasn't meant to, because that was meant to be Roman Reigns versus Goldberg. The pandemic changed everything. Braun Strowman wasn't even on the card for that year's WrestleMania. He'd flown home, or he was going somewhere else, and then he got a call saying, Roman's out of WrestleMania, we're taping tomorrow, can you get here? You're going to be facing Goldberg. And when he beat Goldberg and he won the Universal Championship, at that point, they'd horribly mismanaged this guy to the point that nobody cared anymore. Nobody cared. And his Universal title reign did suck, but that wasn't his fault. It was during a pandemic, and at that point, nobody cared about his character anyway. Then they get him running around the ring, doing choo-choo-choo and the Strowman Express. That's on WWE as far as I'm concerned. Make no mistake, 5 years ago, however many years ago, this guy was a top-tier talent. And he's still, to his name, WWE, for better or worse, even 18 months ago, at the beginning of the pandemic, thought, well, this is a guy we can put the Universal Championship on because he's bankable and he's got something about him. So if Impact Wrestling can get a deal together and they can find a way to sign Braun Strowman to a contract in Impact Wrestling, it's a huge deal for them. It's arguably, in my opinion, it's probably one of the biggest acquisitions that they've had since, we're talking like 2010. You know, I mean, I know that you can look back on the Hogan years of Impact Wrestling, and that's arguably what nearly killed the company. But at the time, signing Hulk Hogan was a big deal. Signing Kurt Angle was obviously a massive deal. Signing Sting was a big deal. Is signing Braun Strowman the level of signing a Sting or a Kurt Angle or a Hulk Hogan? No, it's not. I don't think it's at that level. And Impact Wrestling's just a different company on a different scale at this point. But in terms of major acquisitions, you're talking about former world champions, guys that have just come off WWE television, and as I mentioned, 18 months ago, they were Universal Champion. Signing Braun Strowman, it's a massive deal. It's a massive deal for Impact Wrestling. If they can pull that off, it's huge. Now, what is interesting by that report also is the part where they say, look, Adam Scherr has had conversations with All Elite Wrestling. Again, I feel it's unlikely he will head there, but I've said before, several people go with the idea that Braun Strowman wouldn't be good in AEW because he's not the right fit. That's not the type of pro wrestling that AEW does, or the audience wouldn't like him in AEW. That audience wouldn't like Braun Strowman because they wouldn't like a WWE creation, or they wouldn't like a sports entertainer, if you will. And my response to that is good. Like, why should the AEW audience? He could be the biggest heel in that company, in the sense that, like, yeah, he's exactly what AEW fans don't want. They hate the idea of a Braun Strowman in AEW. So wouldn't that be great to bring him in? This is pro wrestling at the end of the day, right? There are heels and baby faces. And there's good guys, bad guys. There's heat and there's cheers. There's being over with the audience. So I find that whole, he wouldn't fit there. He wouldn't fit. Why not? You can make anything fit. So I think that's interesting to say that they have had talks. It'll be interesting to see where he lands, without a shadow of a doubt. Does Bray Wyatt have an influence on that? I don't think so. I don't think so, but who knows? Who knows? Maybe it will. Maybe, Bray coming into AEW, maybe him go, look, maybe you should bring in Braun as well. Maybe they both go into Impact. Time will tell. I think Braun's more likely to be going to Impact Wrestling. I think he'll probably make his debut at Bound for Glory later this month. I think that's at least the working plan or the hope of people within Impact Wrestling. I know a lot of people are saying, how can Impact Wrestling afford Braun Strowman? They can't afford Braun Strowman. I say this time and time again. The idea that Impact Wrestling doesn't have money, it just isn't true. Anthem has plenty of money. They just decide when they don't want to spend it. If they think that Braun Strowman can make them money for Impact Wrestling, if they think that signing Braun Strowman can help increase the brand awareness or help increase subscription signups or new membership signups on YouTube to their Ultimate Insiders, or subscription signups to Impact Plus, they'll do it. So if they really want, it might not be in the Impact Wrestling budget, it might come out of the Anthem budget, if you will, but names like Braun Strowman don't always become available, especially for a company like Impact. Those kind of big names, when they leave WWE or they get released, 9 times out of 10, they'll go to an AEW or they'll just go to Japan. It's very rare they'll go to Impact. So to have the opportunity to pick one of those names up is a really big deal for the company. Now, this was announced yesterday. This is interesting when it comes to Turning Point, because Impact Wrestling has announced that their 2021 Turning Point event for Saturday, November 20th will be at Sam Towns in Las Vegas, Nevada. It will air, of course, exclusively on the Impact Plus streaming service, but it will air live. This is interesting because usually these Impact Plus events are taped as part of a big television taping or whatever, and then they air on delay. So it's interesting to see that they're now moving back to actually having some of these Impact Plus events airing live, which I think is needed. The problem is, and I think Impact Wrestling have quickly realized this coming out of the pandemic, is that those shows that they had on Impact Plus and just the television show in general really almost benefited from having no fans inside the arena, because you didn't know what was going to happen. There was no such thing as spoilers because there's nobody there to spoil the show. Now that fans are coming back, I think they've started to realize that actually, you know what? Not a lot of people, some people will watch the event even if they see the spoilers. Hardcore fans will. But that air of mystery is really important to Impact Wrestling, and it's very difficult to convince a casual fan to purchase Impact Plus, sign up to Impact Plus, even do a free trial. It's very difficult to convince them to do that when you can just go online and read the results anyway. And I think this is what they should move to. Will this fix their ratings issue? We're going to touch on ratings in a second. I do think the whole ratings discussion is a bit more complex when it comes to Impact Wrestling, again, because of they have multiple ways to watch the show. It's not just Access TV. It's also, again, YouTube. It's also Impact Plus. It's also social media highlights too, which is the case for any pro wrestling company, but it's far more important for a smaller company like Impact Wrestling, for a company that's television program is on a network that's viewed by far less people. But I think this is a good move. I do think it's a good move. Impact will also tape 2 days worth of television at Sam's Town in Vegas on November 21st and November 22nd. The tickets for the Turning Point tapings go on sale Friday, October 15. So Impact, of course, is going to be running Sam Town in Vegas for Bound for Glory on October 23rd. They'll also tape TV content in Vegas after Bound for Glory. So this was a report, I think we mentioned here on the channel, it was maybe like 6 weeks ago, maybe a bit longer than that, that Impact was looking to move to Vegas. Vegas, when it comes to Impact, has been spoken about a lot. They've held tapings there several times in the past prior to the pandemic. moving there, I think, will be a good thing. They need a refresh. They definitely do need a refresh in terms of just the location. Even with the fans there, Skyway Studios in Nashville does feel very tired. I don't know if it'll fix the ratings, to be honest with you. I think they need to come up with a different way of doing that. I think a lot of pro wrestling companies need to nowadays come up with a different way. If you're going to hold television tapings where spoilers can come online, I think they need to come up with a different way of when you come in as part of your ticket, you sign an NDA or whatever that may be. I think they need to find different ways of doing it. I do. Because otherwise, spoilers are just inevitable and they do hurt the show. They do. But interesting. And of course, when it comes to Turning Point, we will be doing a watch along and post show for that. I mentioned we were going to talk about the Impact viewership, and it was once again down. Now, last Thursday's taped edition of Impact Wrestling drew 115,000 viewers on Access TV, according to Nielsen via Showbuzz Daily. This is down nearly 2% from last week's 117,000 viewers for the post-Victory Road episode. Thursday's episode drew a 0.03 rating in the 18 to 49 key demographic. This is about even from last week's number in the key demo 2. Impact ranked 142 in the cable top 150 for the key demo rating and 136 for the night in terms of viewership. Last week's show ranked 140 in the cable top 150 for the demo rating and 138 for the night in viewership. Impact viewership on Thursday was down 31.54% from the same week in 2020. So again, we're talking really big significant drops from this time last year. Again, it was on a different night. Obviously, the NFL Network's Thursday night football game between Jacksonville and Cincinnati dominated cable, as is going to be the case. And obviously, I'm hardly an NFL expert. I mean, I support the Giants, so I can't be an expert. Nevertheless, look, when they were on Tuesday, did they tend to avoid that? I think so. So the move to Thursdays obviously hurt them when it comes to that. I do say I think spoilers do hurt this. I do. Impact Wrestling, it's strange because people forget that earlier this year, towards the tail end of last year, the ratings for Access TV, again, you have to look at it in context. The ratings for Access TV were actually quite strong at the end of last year and beginning of this year with all of the AEW stuff, Kenny Omega stuff, and just going into Slammiversary. Going into Slammiversary last year, Impact Wrestling's ratings were really strong for Access. They were doing some of their best numbers ever. And again, I do think that's because people didn't know what was going to happen in terms of people coming in, but also they couldn't find out what was going to happen. So they had to legitimately tune into the broadcast to find out the results of the show. Now, it takes 2 seconds to go on social media or to go to a website to find it. And yes, you can say, oh, and you're part of the problem because you talk about spoilers here on the channel. I do my very best to warn you that's the case, but this is news at the end of the day. It's out there. It's a wider problem, and I think it's a problem for Impact Wrestling to fix. Now, every time I talk about the ratings here on the channel when it comes to Impact, a lot of people say, and rightfully so, as I just mentioned previously, that it's not the same as when we talk about ratings in terms of WWE and AEW and other promotions, because there are so many different ways to watch Impact, and the majority of their viewership actually doesn't come on Access TV. The majority of it does come on YouTube, or it does come on Impact Plus. It used to come on, with Twitch and all that kind of stuff, on replays, that kind of thing, or on social media highlights. That's true. But it is an important part of the puzzle to look at, and I don't see, just because they go to Vegas, it getting resolved. In terms of, oh, we're in Vegas now, it's a different setting, we're going to have what we had before, which was 180s, 170s. At the moment, it looks like they're going to stick around that 100,000 viewer mark. And I know I mentioned this before when it comes to Bray Wyatt, and some people have said, I mentioned about the exposure that Wyatt would have on TNT versus Impact, and some people got upset by that, but it's just factual numbers here. And I know some people have said, well, Access TV is available in so many homes, and if Bray Wyatt does come in and Braun Strowman comes in, they might do 200,000 viewers. But again, look at what you're saying. They might do 200,000 viewers. If you want exposure, you would go to AEW. You just would. And that is what it is. Unfortunately, I know Impact fans don't want to hear that, but it's the truth of the matter. I still say, I know that Access TV is owned by Anthem. That's why they're on there. And that's always something to fall back on. But it shouldn't mean that Impact isn't shopped out to other networks or other cable networks. I'm not talking cable networks as big as USA or TNT or TBS or anything like that. Impact isn't going to get on there. But pro wrestling at this point is still proven to draw a number and still proven to draw a decent number when it comes to cable. So if Impact Wrestling was on a stronger cable network, I'm not going to profess that I know what they are. I'm over here in the UK. I'm hardly a cable expert when it comes to the United States. But I just think maybe Impact Wrestling should be looking on the lookout and saying, you know what, maybe we should go to a bigger network, or try and find a bigger network that can draw in more viewers than we do on Access TV. And if it doesn't work, or if we go on that network and we get cancelled off that network, we can just come back to Access TV because we own the network. So, and maybe that would increase their exposure and make it more attractive for talent to come in. But that's just my opinion. Finally, we have a Tessa Blanchard update. Now, I know sometimes when we talk about Tessa Blanchard here, people roll their eyes and you'll say, why is this in an Impact Wrestling news video, all this kind of stuff? Well, she's a former Impact World Champion, and it's not related to WWE and AEW, this one. But Tessa Blanchard is set to finally return to pro wrestling. After over a year as a free agent, Tessa Blanchard is set to return to professional wrestling, according to a new report. Now, Fightful Select have reported that Blanchard will be part of the relaunch of Women of Wrestling. The former Impact World Champion has yet to sign with the promotion, but Fightful has noted that this is the current plan. A press conference is currently planned for Wednesday night to make the relaunch official. Beyond Blanchard, an unnamed former Women of Wrestling wrestler will be involved with the promotion, although a roster has not been constructed as of yet, nor will the relaunch be imminent. Several former WOW talents have not been contacted about the relaunch, and many have not heard from the WOW founder David McLean since 2020, when they were asked not to post about bullying allegations against Blanchard. Now, the WOW relaunch has reportedly been known about within the women's wrestling circle for months. Several names were contacted about the relaunch, but none of them ended up joining the project except Blanchard. The Queen of the Carolinas, of course, has been a free agent since Impact Wrestling terminated her contract in June 2020, only days before it was due to expire. She had been inactive within professional wrestling, with the exception of a Warrior Wrestling show in September of that year, where Blanchard dropped the Women's Championship to Kylie Ray. Now, Blanchard was previously accused of bullying and making racist remarks. There have been rumors of her potentially signing with AEW and WWE several times over the course of the last 12 months, but the recent report stated that she is considered to be nuclear and both companies have no interest in signing her. So the Tessa Blanchard saga will continue on. I think her going to the company where the founder is reaching out to people actively saying, don't post accusations about her, or both don't post about these allegations or bullying allegations surrounding her, makes a lot of sense. Look, Tessa Blanchard, as I mentioned time and time again, she isn't going to WWE. She isn't going to AEW. I mentioned if she was going to go to a major company, I think it would be more likely to be WWE because they don't care about negative PR. But even when it comes to Tessa Blanchard, they're like, no, thank you. So a WOW thing, I guess, makes sense, considering, again, the founder and all that kind of stuff. But it speaks volumes when, like, one of the only people attached to the project is Tessa Blanchard. And because of her attachment, people won't want to be attached to the relaunch and the company. But we'll have to wait and see. As I mentioned, the press conference reportedly is scheduled for tomorrow, so we can talk about this more then. But certainly is interesting nevertheless. But look, guys, as always, it's just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on all of these Impact Wrestling news stories we've spoken about today? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about Impact Wrestling, AEW, WWE, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community. Drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube. Go up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right-hand corner of the screen right now. Or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video, along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or have you come across this video today. And I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.